Time is a universal currency. It's not about managing the time. It's managing where you're putting your attention. It's managing the choices you're making, the decisions you face. It's that decision dilemma that we all face every single day. When we don't make a decision, we are actually making a decision.
Business focus.
If you are feeling like there aren't enough hours in the day, this episode is for you. We are covering off choice management, decision management, the things you can do, the steps you can take to fit in not more time in your day, that's impossible, but to fit in the things that matter into your day. So really, when you're busy as hell, it's very hard to take a step back and structure or think about the structure that you're running with for each day, for each week. But today we're going to give you 3 tactics to help you do exactly that. And to make that happen, I'm very happy to welcome back Ron Schwartz, founder of Tacks and subject matter expert when it comes to, creating change, positive change for leaders, businesses, and people in general. So Ron, welcome back.
Thanks, Brendan.
Okay, where should we start? Maybe the very first thing, which is there's no such thing as time management. It's choice or decision management.
Yeah.
Discuss.
Yeah, so time is a universal currency. And I'm sure your listeners have heard this over and over again, but we often hear this idea of time is money. No, time is currency. We even use currency language around it.
For example?
We spend time with someone. We pay attention to something. We invest our time in a hobby.
Yep.
We use financial language around our time. It's our universal currency. So the thing, it's not about managing the time. It's managing where you're putting your attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's managing the choices you're making, the decisions you face. It's that decision dilemma that we all face every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this and I've got this. Which one should I put my time to? Because when we don't make a decision, we are actually making a decision. We're making a choice to deprioritize something else outside of all of that to get those things done, or we're actually going to compromise the outcome that we're trying to achieve.
Look, and I feel like I live that every day. I'm constantly going, if I'm doing work, I'm not with my kids. If I'm with my kids, I'm not looking after myself at the gym. If I'm at the gym, I'm not spending time with my wife. Like there's always just, you can't do everything. So how do you allocate your time in a way where you're focusing on the priorities and whatever your definition of done is, that the time that you're allocating to those means that you can achieve that.
Yeah.
So I guess with that lens and me acting like I know what I'm talking about, feel free to fact check that at any point, by the way. The tactics that can be used, hopefully on a universal basis, to make good decisions, to make the choices that don't give you more time, that's impossible, but allow you to use the time you have as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
Where should we start?
Yeah. So first and foremost is your foundation. You can't build anything without the foundation. And the foundation, we've all got a couple of tools at our disposal, almost universally, hopefully universally, that we can use. Our personal goals,
right,
and our company goals.
Okay, makes sense. Yep.
They're 2 simple things. When we have that, then we should establish some sort of a prioritization framework. There's lots of different frameworks. People use things like the Eisenhower matrix.
Which is what? Because I don't know that one.
Eisenhower matrix is urgent versus important.
Okay.
There's a lot of uncertainty around that because it does drive I've got to do everything type mentality. But if it's urgent and important, then clearly it's a priority. If it's neither urgent nor important, it's not.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And often people say, I'll delegate that. Well, I'd question you, should you delegate it at all? Should it be done? If it's neither urgent nor important, why would you want to delegate it to someone? So this is where now we're hopefully helping other people as well.
Okay.
With their prioritization, their choices, their attention management. The other thing that I've found works really well with a lot of my clients is this idea of an ideal week. Build your week around the way you work, around the cycles you have in the week, in the day. I have a lot of American clients. So my day starts very early in the morning. Mm-hmm. I know that then if I need to do something thinking-wise, I don't do it in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I don't design my day to develop, new ideas, IP, things like that in the afternoon. it would be stupid. I know that Monday mornings, for instance, are quiet because my American clients, it's still Sunday evening. So I use that for deep thinking time.
Okay.
So I've seen my clients do, a lot of things like that where, they'll time box in their ideal week going to the gym, 6 a.m. till 7 a.m.
Yep.
And
That's
if you
me,
think,
by the way. I do a morning walk of 5:30 to 6:30, and then I've got a gym slot later in the day. And then based on my quarterly priorities, I've got time boxed to based on how I've sized that project. But sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and the idea of it, ideal. I mean, the word is intentional. It's ideal.
Yep.
You won't always get there. In fact, it's very rare that you'll get your ideal. But if you've got the intentionality behind it, you are more likely to achieve it.
Right. So
And if you're 50% more in control of your calendar than rather than your calendar controlling you, you might be controlling it.
That's fair. I'm just thinking here, just hearing what you're saying, it sounds like the first thing is to understand yourself, understand how you work, understand where you're at your best, your worst, your circadian rhythm, or whatever it might be, whatever the right term is. And the next one is to understand what your definition of success is week on week. If you don't understand what you're working towards, you haven't got clearly defined goals, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah. So knowing what done looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Which is huge. And I think I mentioned it to you, I did mention it to you before we started recording, which is just, I hate when people don't tell me what a due date is on a task or what priority you should have.
Yeah.
How do you work with that? You can't.
Yeah. And I don't know how many of your listeners and viewers are perfectionists or consider themselves perfectionists. I consider myself a somewhat reformed perfectionist, particularly perfectionists, but also competitive people and high achievers like to go the little bit more. And sometimes we don't need the little bit more. And if we don't need the little bit more, is that good use of the time?
Is that the whole don't let perfect get in the way of done kind of thing?
Yeah, or don't let perfect get in the way of better.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the structure, right? Like that's the what's next?
Yeah. So have scaffolding.
Yep.
That supports you every day, every week, every month. And the scaffolding is have a support team.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
How many? When you actually think about big achievements, how many of them are done by individuals sitting alone in the dark, in some small office? More often than not, we have support teams around us. We work in teams. You played football. It's very rare that there'll be a single footballer able to beat an opposition team.
Yeah, I desperately relied on all the other players on my team in every grade to support me. Yes.
Yeah, so we work in teams. Like with other things, a team here can help. The team can be your partner, your family, can be your direct reports, your peers, your boss. I know there's a lot of peer networks out there that people operate in. These structured peer networks, though the people there can be your, part of your support network. But these are people that you trust and respect. Mm-hmm. And when you trust and respect them, if they give you feedback, if they call you on something, you're more likely to listen.
Yeah.
So I had a client who, as a part of her change plan, she was trying to basically dominate conversations less. She had a tendency to jump in and dominate. Mm-hmm. Her team gave her feedback and they were a part of her support network. One of the things she did to enable them was they had a code word. Whenever they used the code word, and again, this was the trust and respect, whenever they used the code word, she had to shut up.
Okay. Well, there's a huge amount of self-awareness in that though, right? And that's not common necessarily.
No. Yeah. No. That was a structured process to get to that awareness, both at a team and at an individual level. But once she had them engaged as a part of her support network and empowered them to call her, she may not have liked it in the moment, but the fact that she trusted her team and she respected them, she listened.
Okay.
And it made a huge difference for her. The funny thing is they started doing it in sales conversations, and the people they were selling to, it was a very odd code word. When they heard it, that's a weird word to come up in a conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
And they noticed that she stopped, and so they told the story. And a lot of the potential customers loved the idea of that sort of open, vulnerable culture and wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it actually helped the sales cycle as well. So there's lots of different benefits in this. But in terms of choices, in terms of attention, having people around you call you, like, that's not what you said you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where the support network comes in. Having a system that you use. My old boss used to say that your brain is not a system you can trust.
Absolutely.
We rely too much on our brains. We need to have some sort of system. I use color coding, and we've had the conversation about color coding and how if you color code your calendar in a minute or less than a minute, in a second, you can look at your calendar and see where you're spending your time.
So I don't personally do it yet, but Maddie, who heads up marketing for us, and she reports to me, she was telling me that she really rated that and she started doing it and it's had good impact. So let's just take a moment because it's hopefully, I think, quite a simple concept but very powerful. Can you just detail what that looks like in practice?
If you color code your time, your calendar, color code your tasks against your goals. Because remember, one of the parts of the foundation is the goals.
Yeah.
So if you color code against the goals, you can look at how you're putting your time, how you're allocating your choices, the choices you're making, how you are actually allocating the time against those goals. And if the time in your calendar is misaligned with the scale of the goal, so if you've got a big goal for coaching, yet you've only got 1 hour of coaching in your calendar for the week, clearly there's a misalignment.
Yeah.
And you will see it very quickly.
Yeah, and just that visual representation, that's quite powerful. It leaps out of from the calendar to you.
Yeah, and for those who are colorblind, I've had a couple of situations where someone's been colorblind. Icons, because the idea is visual.
Yeah,
it catches our eye.
Yeah,
and once it's caught our eye, it's very hard not to look at it.
Sure. Just reminded me of a story. One of my friends who's colorblind, he got a job picking apples during the university break one year with me, and he had no idea which ones were ripe, which ones weren't, and that was the funniest summer ever. Anyway, that aside.
A couple of other things in terms of your scaffolding. Have an audit process. So if you're being deliberate around your time and your goals, you've got an ideal week, actually do an audit. Once every so often, once a month, once every 2 months, once a quarter, once every 6 months, whatever it is, actually look back over your calendar. How have I actually been spending my time? And is it aligned with what I said was most important? If it isn't, what can I do differently as I progress into next month, next quarter, next half year? And that way, that periodic audit brings again some intentionality to all of these things.
Yeah. So I can give like my own real world example, I think, that relates to that, and pull me up if it's miles off. But basically having the scaffolding or the structure is that I have very clear due dates against all of the tasks related to the projects that have to happen within a quarter. And then on a Sunday night, I'll look at my week ahead, make sure I've time boxed what I think has to happen, not necessarily that down to the exactly what I'll do in that time box, but I know I've got a rough amount of work to do based on the due dates on those tasks, so I'll time block that. And at the end of the week, I'll look back and go, did I actually use that time like I said I'd use it, yes or no? And recently it's been okay, but in the past there's been a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, so that is what I would call more the next point, which is a regular reflection.
Okay.
Some people do it daily.
Right, I do not.
Yeah, in the morning, sit down, where's my time best spent today? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, did I do that? What are the implications for tomorrow?
Right.
Some people do it weekly, some people do it monthly, but making sure you use a regular reflection where you look back and then think forward. The standard after action review that is out there in startups, in lots of different organizations. What went well? What didn't go so well? What would I do differently? You could do that daily, you could do it weekly, you could do it monthly, whatever works for you. What I've found works with most clients is weekly. Daily is a little bit too frequent.
Yeah.
Monthly is not frequent enough. Weekly, it gives you time to look back, reflect on successes as well as the challenges, and then plan proactively for the following week, what things might need to be different in the coming week in order to address the things that didn't happen in the current week. For those of us that are in the office on Fridays, the drive home on Friday afternoon is a great way to do the reflection. And it fits within your existing workflows. It doesn't require you to put extra time towards anything, because that's one of the other things. A lot of things that require extra time, chances are they won't do it. You won't do it. If you can build all of these disciplines into your existing workflows, you're more likely to be able to do them.
Right. And even, I'm an advocate for blocking out the first 30 to 60 minutes of every Monday for just reflection and planning, get it done. But I actually think one of the powerful things about that week ahead planning is if you're actually being honest about how much time you need to block out to achieve the stated goals that you and your company have committed to for the quarter or month or whatever, you see how little time's actually left for people to fill up your calendar with BAU tasks.
Yep.
And if that becomes a problem and people are like, hey, I actually have this meeting you need to be at, or I have this other thing, you start to realize actually I've overcommitted, and you can see it well ahead of time, or you can at least see the buildup of time you should have allocated but haven't to this project, and you start to get a sense of, is it actually still on track or is it probably not? It's just all those little benefits that come up from starting to get a much better understanding of the time you have available.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
No, and it links to actually the third group of tactics, which is this idea of watering and weeding. Imagine it's a garden. If whatever needs to be watered, you need to water. But if you don't weed the weeds, they take over the garden. And so you're either going to water things, weed them, or you'll ultimately waste. So the things that you water are the things that are most important. You go back to your prioritization framework. You go back to your goals. You use all those things to sort of go, okay, these are important, so I'm going to keep investing in them. Then having a discipline around weeding your garden, actually pulling out those things that are not adding value. That's a hard conversation to have, because quite often what's a weed for you may not be a weed for someone else. So having the hard conversation with someone it's a part of trust and honesty and respect of each other, rather than just saying yes and not doing it or ignoring them or whatever it is. Actually saying, hey, sorry, I cannot prioritize that today, or I cannot prioritize that this week. But you need to be able to remove those weeds. And things like having a not to-do list as well as a to-do list. A great tactic there, building the discipline around your meetings. We were talking before we started filming about one of my clients that, as a part of his meeting discipline, insisted, he was the general manager of a large retail organization. He insisted that every single person, when they send an invite to him, just put the objective, what's the outcome, and what questions are we going to answer to get there. So in the invite, make sure those two things are there.
Right.
And he got a little bit draconian with it and said he's going to decline invites that don't have that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is he only ever received 2 without it.
Right. Yeah. They got the hint pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But, in talking to him, he would say that he saved between 20 and 25% of his calendar by knowing what meetings were about. Are they really important now? If not, then push back and say, maybe we can do this next week.
Yeah.
Or maybe we don't need to do it. Or even better, there's someone else in the company who can answer the question better than I can.
Yeah.
Why don't you go to that person, here's their details, and, copy them in, whatever it is, but making sure that the right person is in the room to answer the questions to achieve the outcome.
Yeah.
And he allowed himself to say no, which is actually a part of the mindset shift that has to happen with this as well. It's okay to say no.
Yeah. No is a very powerful word.
Yeah. Or not now.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be no.
Yeah. I know this might be a little bit simplistic too, but I think there's maybe it's an individualistic approach that may or may not work. But for me, I need quite a bit of time to really sink my teeth into a creative piece of work or into a complicated piece of work. It can't be an hour here and I'll come back to that 3 hours later for another hour. So I think there's a lot of, it makes a lot of sense to package up. If you've got one-on-ones with your staff, make any day, but for me, it's Monday mornings. I have the start of every week, my one-on-ones are all in the morning done. And then I've got the afternoon free to really sink my teeth into something. Yeah. I've got Tuesday, there's pretty much 2 big blocks I can use. So I think there's also just genuinely just basic tactics to get yourself in a frame of mind where you are allocated to that task, give yourself big chunks of time to be really productive and focus on in-depth things. So that's worked for me.
Yeah, and that's a part of the ideal week. Have same time each week, your one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Then that means your thinking time is the same time each week. Your sales time, your IP development time, your time for team meetings, and making sure that your ideal works within the organizational context. Mm-hmm. So the cycles that the executive team has or whatever team you're a part of. but make sure it works within your own cycles. And then bring in the watering and weeding to make sure that things don't take over that ideal week unnecessarily.
Yep.
And the things that are in there, you're investing more and more time in.
Okay.
One thing to be conscious of, though, is Parkinson's law of resource management, which I
know, but you should tell everyone just because they probably don't know.
I suspect many people out there do know this
I
one,
don't.
but a task expands or contracts to consume the resources allocated.
Oof. Okay, I didn't know that, but that's very true.
So we do need to be thoughtful, though. If you're saying, I'm going to do 3 hours for this thinking, does it really need 3 hours?
That is a very, very good point. Okay, well, now I'm conflicted, so thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I guess the thing is when I'm thinking about, say, in IQP, as we call them, individual quarterly priority, they're not really individual, but team-based typically. It should be really called TQP, but it doesn't matter. If I've allocated 3 hours, it's typically going, how much of that can I smash? And there's a whole bunch of individual tasks within that 3 hours. But I'm definitely guilty of also going, I've got to write, I don't know, a blog or something. I'll give myself an hour and a half. Did I need an hour and a half? Have I ever actually looked back at how long it actually takes? And then start to sort of use that retrospective analysis to put out the actual time? No, I haven't done that.
Yeah. So, and this is where that tactic around the goals and knowing what done looks like is so important.
Yeah.
Once you've achieved done, pull the plug. It's done.
Okay.
And so knowing what done looks like can be at an annual level, quarterly level, weekly, monthly level, or it could be for each task.
Okay.
Know what done looks like. Be clear about that. And if someone gives you a task and you don't know what done looks like, ask the question.
Yeah.
So often you see people just accepting delegation without the clarity of what done looks like. So if you don't know what done looks like, just ask what done looks like. Okay, what does success look like? How's my success going to be judged? Or what's the measures here? Whatever the question is that you like to use, but make sure you walk away from the conversation where someone's delegating to you, knowing exactly what done looks like.
Well, a lot of people I work with are going to start getting that question from me, so I'll refer them to you for any questions. All right, we are out of time, so I think maybe what would be a good way to finish up here is if we just quickly restate, if you do, just quickly restate the key tactics there, and then we'll see it out.
So build your foundation. Okay, so your goals, your prioritization framework, have your ideal week. Put the scaffolding in place, so have your support team. Have all those things around you that will allow you to make the decisions day in and day out that are consistent with where you want to put your attention. And then lastly, water what's important and weed what isn't. So they're probably the three things to think about to at least get closer to your ideals, at least get closer to allocating your time the way it is most aligned with what you say is important.
Love it. Okay, I'm just going to finish off with this little quote that was in a slide deck that you used with us recently, which is, life is a series of trade-offs and greater results usually require greater trade-offs. The question is not, do you want to be great at this? The question is, what are you willing to give up to be great at this? Life is full of opportunity cost. You can't do everything. Make good choices. Ron, thank you so much for coming on. And to the viewers, we will have show notes on YouTube that tells you where to find Ron. The short answer is LinkedIn, Brass Tacks, Ron Schwartz, but the detail will very much be in the show notes. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.